Yeah, hello, my name is Maren Walter and I'm a research scientist at the University of Bremen and work there as a physical oceanographer. And on this cruise I'm the chief scientist here and I'm practically in charge of all the scientific operations on the ship. Yeah, I really like being at sea. So I like standing on the ship and watch the ocean. That's really a thing which I loved from the beginning. So, and what I really like about being at sea for work is that you have to rely on the things you bring with you. So it's not like, oh, I can have everything. So you have to think beforehand what you might need, and then you pack it. And when you're on ship, you have to make do with what you have and improvise and work as a team on things and together with the crew and the other scientists. And that's something I really like. That's something you have as a scientist. Normally, you sit in your office in front of your computer and work on data, and that's something you don't have in your shore-based day-to-day work. On the Poseidon, I like most that actually I like that it's small. It's a very familiar atmosphere. You are only a handful of scientists and a handful of crew members, and you get to know everybody very fast, and it's very familiar setting, and it's a very friendly atmosphere here. And I also like that it's more of a sort of, it's a little bit older vessel, so it's sort of old-fashioned and more ship-like than the more modern vessels. That's something I also like. In this case, it was like we are part of the Transregio of a sub-project which deals with low-mode internal waves. And there are several aspects to this, for example, global modeling or global observations with satellites, but we early on decided that we also need some process studies for this too, because there is not much understanding about how the energy is transferred from the low-mode internal waves into higher mode waves or dissipation. Then we decided we need an expedition, and so first you think about a good possible location, which in our case was here the Azores region because of the strong tidal beam signal which we find here. Then you have to decide for which type of ship to apply. So in our case, we knew we don't need lots of heavy equipment like remote operated vehicles or something like that. So we can do with a little ship, with a smaller ship and a smaller crew of scientists. So we decided on the Poseidon. And then you have to write a proposal for ship time for a ship, and where you lay out your scientific plans and the work you want to do, and what type of equipment you need and how many scientists you need for that. And this is then reviewed by other scientists, and if it gets approved, and we had the funding for the cruise within the Transregio project, then you can start planning. You have to obtain some scientific from the states where you want to measure. In our case, from the Azores, so Portugal, you have to obtain a permit, a research permit from them, and then you have to do some a lot of administrative work to get the scientists there in the harbor which you are assigned to. Yeah, when you know all that, then you can make a plan where you want to put your instruments in the water, where the stations should be, and all that. The Poseidon 523 cruise is the second cruise in the Transregio to the area south of the Azores. We have been here last year with the Poseidon, cruise number 516, and this year we come back to first recover a mooring we deployed last year. The aim of the cruise is to study the internal wave fluxes and the dissipation along a tidal beam that emanates from the seamount south of the Azores and stretches out towards the Cape Verde Islands. And this is one of the strongest signals of this sort in the Atlantic. That's why we're going here. And we study this by means of CTD and LADCP operations and microstructure measurements. CTD and LADCP means conductivity, temperature, depth, and lowered acoustic current profiler. These are instruments which we use to measure the stratification in the water and the currents in the water. We use them in an instrument package that we lower from the ship to the seafloor, and we occupy time series stations which each will last about 1.5 to 2 days, and we make repeated profiles there and study the temporal variability of the tidal cycle of the internal wave energy. The microstructure probe is a different instrument which only is only usable in the upper ocean, and it measures the dissipation of energy in the ocean. The mooring we deployed is also designed to study internal wave fluxes and is equipped with a temperature and current recorders, same as the CTD LADCP system, and it has been in the water now for about 9 months, and we hope that we will learn about the temporal variability of the fluxes there. And this here is an area where the tides are dominant. As I already said, it's a tidal beam, which is very strong in tidal energy, and the wind is not very strong here, so that's an ideal region to study the tides. And we already found last year that the tidal energy along the beam varies a lot, and one of the reasons why it varies might be the so-called critical latitude. This is a region where waves should theoretically stronger interact with each other and lose a lot of their energy. And this year we will now focus on this area more and have several stations in the vicinity to get a feeling for what really happens in this region. The measurement process is like the ship goes on a station and stays there for like 2 days, and during that time we repeat our measurements in a cycle, which means we do a few CTD stations and we do a few microstructure profiles. And again, the CTD stations, the reason behind this is that we want to, at each station, we want to resolve the tidal cycle at least, better 2, so the 2-day period, to see what changes during this tidal cycle with the internal wave energy. And also this is interesting because the other important factor is the wind, and the wind-driven internal waves then normally have a period that is depends on the latitude, and this is also about 1 day, 1.5 days here in this area. So we cover that too. So this is the reason why we stay so long in one place. And yeah, the position of the stations is, as I already said, a little bit centered about this critical latitude to see what happens there, and it's in parallel to the stations we had last year, to see what the spatial variability might be, and we reoccupy one of the stations during a different tidal phase. So tides have spring and neap cycles. During neap cycles, tidal forcing is very weak, and during spring cycles, it's very strong. And we have the opportunity now here to reoccupy a station in the exact opposite phase, so we can see whether that makes a difference. What we collect here on board is basically raw data in form of stratification information and current information. And then there has, after the basic post-processing of the instrument data, then we have this information. And after the cruise, then the real scientific analysis of this begins, because internal wave energy fluxes are not straightforward. So we have to calculate, for example, vertical excursions of the density surfaces. So, like, this is the motion the waves impose on the water column, and from this we can study the frequencies of these. Look whether it's tidal frequency, and then we can fit modes, so wave patterns to these data, and from these wave patterns we can finally calculate the fluxes, or the internal wave fluxes. And the same goes for dissipation. You have to calculate the spectra of small scale fluctuations from the actual data, and from these spectra then you can make estimates about the energy dissipation. And yeah, that's taking a lot of time, and when we've done that, we do the same for model data from the storm tide model, for example, and then we can compare the two, and then we can find where the model should be is right and where it's wrong and where it can be improved. So that's the ultimate goal for that.